Welcome to One for the Road. I'm Devvy Kid and your commentator. One for the Road was developed and created to help the busy commuter and Americans who don't have access to the internet find out what Congress and the media won't tell you. The presidential candidates for the two major parties are busy on the campaign trail with their endless, worn-out, meaningless chatter that we hear every election cycle, with the exception of Congressman Ron Paul, of course. Here and there are comments about more tax cuts for the rich, and we have to leave Bush's tax cuts in place. Americans have been demanding for decades that there be an end to this communist, heavy, progressive, and grotesque federal income tax. Most Americans really have no idea how the taxing scheme even works, including the so-called withholding scam. Little do Americans realize that not a single penny of their income tax money funds a single function of the federal government. No? Let me quote you from just one source dated January 15, 1984, available from the Congressional Research Service, and this excerpt can be found on page 12. This was a report to Ronald Reagan. In other words, all individual income tax revenues are gone before one nickel is spent on the services which taxpayers expect from their government. Well, if your income tax doesn't fund the government, where does it go? It goes to pay down the so-called national debt. It goes to transfer payments to the unconstitutional, our participation in the communist UN, which is unconstitutional, to the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, foreign aid, all of this, stealing from the people's purse. Congress has never had the authority to do it, and yet they're getting away with it. That's where your income tax dollars go. Every single penny that they're spending in this current $2 trillion budget has to be borrowed from the central bank. There's no money in the Treasury. It's $9 trillion in the hole. So how is it that the Congress is spending $2 billion a day funding this immoral, unconstitutional invasion of Iraq? How is it that they're spending tens of billions of dollars every day when there's no money in the Treasury? They're borrowing it. There is no need for any direct taxation, and the so-called fair tax and other taxing schemes are just that. They will solve nothing because they feed the privately owned central bank, which is the key mechanism raping the American people blind. I urge you to go to my website and read a document I wrote called Why an Income Tax is Not Necessary to Fund the Federal Government. I have gone into great detail to explain the difference between the debt and the deficit, who creates this debt, and where all this money is going. I want to give you a good quote from T. Coleman Andrews, May 25, 1956, from U.S. News and World Report. Andrews was commissioner of the IRS for 33 months under the Eisenhower administration before he resigned. He said the following, quote, "We're confiscating property now. That's socialism. It's written into the Communist Manifesto. Maybe we ought to see that every person who gets a tax return receives a copy of the Communist Manifesto with it so he can see what's happening to him," unquote. On November 4, 2005, Congress once again passed a grossly unconstitutional foreign aid appropriations bill in the amount of $20.9 billion. Every one of those dollars that doesn't even exist has to be borrowed from the private banking cartel. In this monstrous new foreign aid appropriations bill was a $4 million expenditure to fund Russian political parties. Senator Sam Brownback, who's running for president, actually authored a piece of legislation last year to send $3 million to fund political parties in Iran. Hello? Isn't Iran part of Mr. Bush's axis of evil? There, between those two expenditures alone, $7 million that doesn't exist has to be borrowed from the private banking cartel, which will turn around and charge we the people interest on ink. Senator Brownback wouldn't know what the U.S. Constitution said if James Madison stood in front of him and read it word by word. Is this what you really get up to go to work every day to pay for? All foreign aid is unconstitutional regardless of what country it's sent to. This transfer of our wealth is bankrupting this country, and the process is just about complete. Is this really the legacy you will hand your children and grandbabies? Nothing but massive oceans of unpayable debt? I urge you again to go to my website, Devvy.com, and read that document. It's prominently displayed why an income tax is not necessary to fund the federal government, and then get in the face of your federal congressman and counterfeit senator and demand an end to this immoral taxation. Thank you, and have a good day at work. Just remember, you're supporting the illegal aliens and potentates in foreign countries. I'm sure that'll make you very happy.